A tenant advocate in Long Beach, California, who fought evictions for years is being evicted by a landlord who used a California loophole to get rid of that tenant. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. So I have an interesting story for you today, and it's coming out of Long Beach, California. And the reason I bring this story up because I actually found it kind of funny. I found it funny that a tenant advocate in a very, very cheap rent-controlled unit was getting evicted, and the landlord is using the law to their advantage to be able to get rid of her. And you know what? That's perfect, because I hate the whole entitled tenant nonsense, okay? Part of the thing that I read in the story was that this tenant had been living in this unit for nearly 3 decades, but she's only 32 years old. So basically, what happened was her parents had been living there, and then she took the lease over when her parents, left, or I don't know if they passed away or whatever, right? But basically, she's living there now and her parents no longer are. So that's one of the issues I have with rent control right there. How people can pass it on instead of moving out and then allowing the landlord to be able to fix the property up and bring it up to market rate rents, right? They want to be able to hold on to those super low, super cheap rents forever. And yeah, there's going to be a lot of work that needs to be done because you stayed in the unit for so long. It's extremely dated. It's got a lot of problems, and the landlord needs to be able to go in there and fix it. Okay. So yeah, I mean, this happens to every landlord, usually in a much, much shorter time period, where eventually we're going to have to go up into one of our properties after our tenant moves out and fix it up. But when it comes to a rent controlled unit, they want to stay there for life. They want to stay there into the afterlife. They want to pass it on to their children. Well, how are we supposed to fix the property up then? And then what do we get called? Slumlords. Oh, why is your property in such bad shape? Well, you're paying me so much below market rent that it's not even funny, and you won't leave the unit so that I can fix it. So it is what it is, right? Anyway, let me tell you this story because this is a good story, and we'll kind of laugh at it together. Anyway, before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. So, do you think it's a little bit ironic that the person who is fighting evictions ends up getting evicted? Oh yeah, that's what I call karma right there. Okay, get what you deserve. Fighting evictions and have no clue what the business is and why people or why landlords are doing what they do. You make us bankrupt so that you could live cheap and have subsidized rent for the rest of your life. Well, that's a bunch of garbage, and you're getting kicked out. And guess what? Now that you're getting kicked out, you're going to have to pay market rate rents when you go try to find another place, because I find it very unlikely that you're going to find another rent-controlled unit for as cheap as what you were paying here. So let's get into it. This article is coming from eastbaytimes.com, and it says a California woman fought remodel evictions for years. Now she's the one being evicted. Yep, she's the one being evicted. As a housing activist, Maria Lopez spent years working to close what she saw as a significant, if little-known, loophole in eviction law. Working with the Long Beach Tenants Union, Lopez organized dozens of renters facing substantial remodel evictions across her hometown, speaking at city council meetings and leading protests to draw attention to the rule, which allows landlords to evict tenants if they plan significant renovations to their properties. From Lopez's perspective, the rules allow landlords looking to raise rents to evict tenants for minor upgrades or remodels that never happened once the tenant was gone. Her work helped push Long Beach to impose regulations on such evictions and influenced a recent change in state law aimed at tightening restrictions on them. Yeah, so basically, she is opposed to a landlord being able to buy a property, right, and then allow the tenant's lease to expire, fix up the unit, and then rent it out for a higher price. So let me explain something to the tenants on here who watch my videos who have no clue about the landlord business, right? Now, I want to ask you something. If somebody told you, okay, All right, I want you to buy this property. It costs $1 million. So you're going to have to put down at least $200,000 of your own money. Okay? And you put your $200,000 down, right? And then you get a mortgage on the rest of the amount. And I don't know what it is. We'll just say for example's sake, it's $5,000 a month, right? So you put $200,000 cash out of your pocket down, and then you have a mortgage of $5,000 a month on top of that, okay? And then they tell you, okay, well, you cannot charge enough rent to cover the cost of your mortgage. Like, what do you mean I can't charge enough rent to cover the cost of my mortgage? No, you can only charge these tenants, it's a duplex, so you can only charge each tenant $1,000 a month, and you can only raise their rent by 8%. And I'm like, wait a second. So I'm going to take a $3,000 a month loss every single month that I own this place? Yeah, you are. Basically, you have to pay the tenant's rent for them. You have to pay for all this stuff. The tenant gets to pay you almost nothing, and you have to subsidize their living for as long as they want to live there. You know what a lot of landlords are going to tell you when they hear that? Yeah, I don't think so. You know what? That's dumb. So nobody in their right mind would buy a property and do that. But what they would do is say, okay, I'm going to buy this property. The mortgage is $5,000 a month, right? If I remove this tenant and then fix their unit up, I can rent that unit for $3,000 a month. And it's a duplex. So once you combine the two units, now it's $6,000 a month I'm making. And that's $1,000 a month in cash flow over the cost of my mortgage. So I am actually making money now. Now, I realize there's other expenses involved, and I'm oversimplifying a lot of things, right? But the point of the matter is that the strategy a lot of landlords use is that they buy the property with the intent of fixing it up, raising the rents, and then it will have better cash flow than when they bought it. They do not buy a property with the intent of keeping the rents exactly as low as when they purchased it. Because even if you don't put any money into fixing it up and you charge the exact same rents as the last landlord, you're still going to lose money because the previous landlord probably bought the property for a lot less money than you did. Or they had a much better interest rate. That's a new thing that is pretty common now. The previous owner had a much better interest rate than you did. So, your expenses automatically like that are going to be exponentially higher than the previous owners. So if you don't make the numbers work from the get-go, well, you're screwed. And that's what they want. They want us to be screwed. So what I'm telling you is, simply put, this is a common thing. There's nothing unusual about it. If you don't allow landlords to do this, there's only one thing that could possibly happen, right? Properties will become dilapidated and falling apart. Okay? You're going to have a housing stock in horrible disrepair. Is that what you want? You want, everywhere to be, just horrible disrepair, looking like the ghetto everywhere you go. Apparently that's what they want so that they can maintain their cheap rent. But, let me continue with this story because it's telling. Then, late last year, not long after a new owner bought the duplex Lopez has lived in since she was 6 years old, she was handed an eviction notice of her own. The reason? Substantial remodel. My heart just sank, Lopez, 32, said at the moment when she got the notice. And I bring up her age. They mentioned her age in the article. I bring up her age because she's lived in this unit since she was 6 years old. And she's only 32. And basically her whole life revolves around, because she's a tenant activist, right? Her whole life revolves around trying to figure out how to maintain her cheap rent for the rest of her life. You know how pathetic that is? How sad that is that you've locked yourself into this apartment that, for the rest of your life, I guess. That's the way you had it planned out. You were like, I'm never moving. I'm never going to go and, live anywhere else, not even within my own city. I just want to stay right here in this little apartment. You know what? maybe you need to go. Okay? Maybe you need to go. Expand your horizons. I've lived in, man, a bunch of different houses. I've owned a bunch of different houses. I've lived in multiple cities throughout the entire country. Okay? I know I'm not saying that everybody has to move around like I did, right? But, you know, don't be afraid to move around. I mean, within Long Beach or within the Los Angeles area. You know, this is a big world. You don't have to sit there in the same apartment that you were in when you were 6. That's just so sad, you know? And I feel like you are almost like a shut-in, you know? Like where you're just trapped in this house. It's just holding you hostage. Maybe this is the best thing to ever happen to you, getting evicted from this place. Tenant advocates have raised concerns about substantial remodel evictions since the 2019 Tenant Protection Act was approved in California to limit rent increases and offer renters some protections against being evicted without cause. Under that law, one permissible reason for an eviction is if an owner is planning a substantial remodel of a unit. And you know what, that it seems reasonable that they would include that, but you know the problem I have is that there shouldn't be rent control laws in the first place. There shouldn't be these strong eviction protections in the first place. There shouldn't be some kind of right to some lifelong tenancy that you can pass on to your children, okay? All of those laws are complete garbage. They wonder why housing is so expensive, because people are locked into these houses and they will not let them go. So, anyway, I'm not going to read this whole article. Here's the short of the story, right? So she fought this substantial remodel eviction and the landlord won, and now she has to go. It's pretty simple. The landlord met the rules that the state asked for, and they're going to fix the place up, rent it out for substantially more than what she was paying, and that's the end of it. So, what lessons can we learn from this? That's a big one, right? Here we go. Don't invest in Long Beach, California. Hell, don't invest in California at all, okay? Don't invest anywhere where there's rent control laws or extremely strong tenant protections. Those are the important lessons, right? You shouldn't have to hope that you can jump through some hoops and maybe be able to raise your rent up to market levels. No, you should just be able to keep your rent at market levels without asking the government for permission to do so. And if you're a tenant in one of these units, just keep in mind, nothing is forever. Nothing, okay? Eventually, you will have to leave. You don't own the place. It's just a fact of life.